Thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che for Arirang News. Tensions between North Korea and the United States seem to be on the rise yet again. First, Pyongyang offered to temporarily suspend nuclear activities if Seoul and Washington cancel an upcoming joint military drill. The U.S., in response, called Pyongyang's offer an implicit threat and said the exercises will go on as planned. Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
The United States has rejected North Korea's offer to temporarily suspend nuclear tests in exchange for an end to joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington. This comes after North Korea's foreign ministry said Saturday that it had made the offer through a relevant channel a day earlier. U.S. State Department Spokesperson Jen Psaki said Saturday North Korea's proposal that inappropriately links routine military drills to the possibility of a nuclear test is an implicit threat. She added that a fresh nuclear test would be a clear violation of Pyongyang's obligations under multiple UN Security Council resolutions, as well as its own commitments as outlined in a joint six-party statement in 2005. The joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington, scheduled for sometime between February and March, have long upset Pyongyang. North Korea claims it's a practice for war, while South Korea and the U.S. say it is purely defensive in nature. A halt to the annual drills was also a precondition to better inter-Korean ties laid out in North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech. Psaki reiterated that Washington remains open to dialogue with the North, but only if the regime ends all threats and takes the necessary steps toward denuclearization. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And North Korea has once again denied its involvement in the hacking of Sony Pictures. In an editorial on Saturday, the Chosun Shinbo, the North's mouthpiece in Japan, said North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Su-yong had sent a letter expressing his condolences to the French Foreign Minister over the recent attacks there, and claimed it remains opposed to supporting terrorist activities. It went on to say that the international media has repeated Washington's claims by linking the recent tragedy in France to the hacking of Sony Pictures. The editorial said North Korea condemns the U.S. government's claims that Pyongyang is behind the cyber attack on Sony for the release of the movie The Interview. Shifting our focus back to South Korea, President Park Geun-hye is expected to lay out her policies for 2015 in a New Year's press conference on Monday. The event will be the second of its kind since she took office nearly 2 years ago. In her speech, President Park is expected to unveil her policies on North Korea and propose ways to revitalize the economy. This year is the last in a 3-year economic revitalization plan President Park laid out when she first took office. Attention is focused on whether the president will talk about reshuffling her staff following a document leak scandal that rocked the political arena. For our live coverage of the president's press conference on Monday morning, do join us at 10 a.m. Korea time. Korea has slammed the Japanese government for justifying visits by its leaders to the highly controversial Yasukuni War Shrine. The Japanese government said during a cabinet meeting last week that its citizens believe the shrine is a symbol commemorating the nation's fallen soldiers and that the country's leaders should pay their respects there. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry said Tokyo is backtracking on history and that its actions will only further isolate the nation from the international community. The shrine honors thousands of war dead, including Class A war criminals. Naturally, visits to the shrine by Japanese leaders always draw angry reactions from Korea and China, victims of Japan's imperialist aggression. And France is on high alert as huge crowds gather in Paris ahead of a rally for unity. This comes in the wake of the attacks on Charlie Hebdo magazine. The Interior Minister made it clear he is committed to his citizens' safety while French police continue their search for a woman tied to the attacks. Our Connie Kim has this report.
France says it's determined to fight terrorism following the attacks on the satirical French publication Charlie Hebdo in a Jewish supermarket last week. In a press conference on Sunday, after a security summit with ministers from Europe and North America, French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve said France will ensure the safety of its citizens through solidarity with neighboring countries. He added that there will be a better exchange of information among European nations to better combat future attacks. He spoke ahead of a mass rally in Paris characterized as a call for unity against extremism. More than 1 million people are expected to attend the event, along with dozens of world leaders, including the Israeli Prime Minister and the Palestinian President. Approximately 5,500 police officers will be deployed in Paris ahead of the event, with some already posted at synagogues and mosques. The event follows marches held Saturday to honor the victims. Meanwhile, the hunt for the suspect of the terror attack is not over. A woman suspecting of being an accomplice in a shooting that took place after the attacks may have left France days before the attacks began. French police launched a search for 26-year-old Hayat Boumediene after police shot her partner, Amadi Coulibaly, on Friday in the kosher supermarket where 4 hostages were killed. Coulibaly was named in the killing of a policewoman last Thursday. A Turkish intelligence official told the Associated Press that a woman by the same name arrived in Istanbul on January 2nd. Turkish authorities say Boumediene traveled to Sanliurfa, a Turkish city near the Syrian border, 2 days later and then disappeared. The attack on the paper that satirized Islam and other religions has raised questions about freedom of speech, religion, and security in a country that's home to more than 5 million Muslims. France is maintaining its highest security level in light of the events that started with the attack on the French weekly Charlie Hebdo, in which 17 people and 3 hostage takers were killed over 3 days last week. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
We shift our focus to the Java Sea. A sonar scan has revealed an object resembling the fuselage of the missing AirAsia flight QZ8501 on the seafloor. An official involved in the search told Reuters there is a big possibility that the black boxes of the jet that crashed December 28th are nearby. Searchers have been hearing intermittent underwater pings, believed to be from the jet's flight data recorders. The sounds were coming from close to where the tail of the plane once thought to contain the black boxes raised on Saturday. Meanwhile, officials at the Korean embassy in Bangkok say the bodies of 2 Koreans who were on board the ill-fated flight have been identified. They are Park Sung-bum, 37 years old, and his wife Lee Kyung-hwa, who was 36. The couple's 11-month-old daughter is still missing. Moving on to other stories, Korea is expected to record yet another tax deficit this year. In other words, for 4 years in a row. According to a parliamentary report, the nation's budget deficit could surpass an earlier estimate of 3.4 trillion won, or around $3.1 billion this year. Lower than predicted economic growth and inflation are viewed as the main factors at play. The National Assembly Budget Office in October predicted the government would collect 218.2 trillion won in taxes, with the expectation of a tax revenue shortfall of over 3 trillion won of this year. But the report shows the state tax income will be lower than that, as the government cut this year's growth projection from 3.8% to 3.5% amid falling oil prices. That is expected to dent the nation's tax revenue shortage more than expected. And it looks like Korean government's efforts to revitalize the property market have had the desired effect, as the country's home sales hit an 8-year high last year. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport says the number of housing transactions surged 18% to surpass the 1 million mark for the first time since 2006. The number of housing transactions in Seoul soared 32.5% over the previous year to more than 148,000 last year, increasing 11.1% in rural areas. Various government measures, including relaxed rules on home-backed bank loans and a 10-year reduction in the minimum age of housing units eligible for reconstruction, may have helped breathe new life into the housing market. And researchers have developed a brain map standardized specifically for Koreans. It's expected to not only help local doctors but advance treatments for patients with brain damage. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Korean scientists have developed a brain map specific to the physiology of Koreans that they say can be used not only to detect disease, but also determine the health of one's brain. They created it by analyzing the MRIs of over 2,700 patients with acute brain damage.
This is the first ever Korean standardized brain map that we were able to develop after analyzing patients' MRI and setting up a big data system to collect information. This was made through numerous testing.
A 43-year-old and a 71-year-old patient compared their MRIs to the brain map on a scale of 1 to 100. The 43-year-old gets a 50, while the other a 25. Researchers say the higher the number, the more severe a patient's condition, meaning the patient in his 40s is in need of immediate treatment.
This chart could rate a brain-damaged patient's severity in 100 levels. It ranks the amount of brain damage a patient suffers. This is expected to help doctors treat and evaluate patients.
With doctors nationwide being provided this free, standardized brain map, it's hoped that medical officials will be better equipped to more accurately diagnose and treat their Korean patients. Hwang Bin, Arirang News.
And now the weather. If you're in Korea, you can expect clear skies nationwide on Monday morning, but looks can be deceiving. Temperatures will drop drastically with the mercury going below -8 in Seoul, so dress warm. And now let's check out the weather conditions in your neck of the woods and around the world. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for watching. Do have a great start to your week.